Katrina Stratton.
Thank you. As a social work educator, I would often encourage my students to learn about humanity and the human experience by reading and accessing fiction, because fiction can give us access to worlds and feelings and experiences that we can't or don't otherwise have access to. It can help us and does help us to develop empathy and compassion and understanding. It can help us develop kindness towards others. Fiction and non-fiction can help children and young adults, as well as adults, in age-appropriate ways understand complex human emotions and experiences, relationships, sex, sexuality, family conflict, grief, but it can also help us to access joy, friendship, fun, fantasy, romance and escapism, the full range of human experiences and emotions. And of course, as a parent, I hope and I work to help my children navigate those experiences. But one's a teenager and one's a young adult. It's not always developmentally appropriate for them to have those conversations with me. And not every parent is safe to have those conversations with. Books can also provide a safe starting point for those conversations as well. We can talk about characters and their experiences to the side with some kind of objectivity, as a way of talking in a safe manner about our own questions, our own curiosities and our own understandings. And my daughter and I have often read young adult books in parallel just so we can have those kinds of safe conversations. And let's also be very clear that most teenagers, most adults indeed, carry in our hands access to a world of content that we struggle to regulate, the online space. And we are seeing young men especially being drawn into the manosphere where they're exposed to and encouraged to engage in often violent misogyny and rape culture. Books that provide sex education and include lessons in consent are but one remedy to that. The Albanese government's bold ban on social media for under 16s has also made public libraries even more important as spaces for children and young people to find themselves and their identities. And that response was in part required because companies such as Meta do not take responsibility for their content and the way that people engage. As somebody who has reported multiple rape threats to Meta to only be told that they don't breach their community standards, then yes, we do have to take some control. And while this motion might be couched in terms about acknowledging the role of public libraries and parents, the quiet bit is about restricting freedom of access to information and education, especially when it comes to complex human experiences like sexuality and sex and relationships and family wrapped up as concern. So I want to look at this motion through the lens of a book that has been challenged and removed from some schools and libraries at various times in the United States. And I do hope that we are not looking to follow the path of the USA and putting people in danger just because of their identities, including as women, because that, again, is the quiet bit. And a book that guided me and many women in my generation and continues to do so through the experience of beginning menstruation, Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, by Judy Blume. The book is a beloved coming-of-age story and an important cultural milestone in girls' health education. And for those not familiar, the novel tells the story of Margaret Simon, an 11-year-old girl who moves from New York City to the suburbs of New Jersey with her mum and dad. And while adjusting to a new school, new friends and a new community, she also faces the challenges and the uncertainties of growing up. And one of the central themes of the book is puberty. Margaret and her friends are eager to mature and grow up, and they often discuss topics such as bras, body changes, boys, and getting their first periods. And Margaret is especially anxious about when she will begin her first period because some of her friends have already started, developing much more quickly than she feels she has. And as the story progresses, she navigates those friendships, peer pressure, family relationships, and her own changing body. And what she learns is that everyone develops at a different pace and that many of the worries she has are indeed shared by her friends. And the novel concludes with a moment Margaret has been anticipating throughout the book. She gets her first period, and rather than being portrayed as something that is frightening or shameful, it is presented as a normal and meaningful milestone in her journey towards adolescence. What a wonderful lesson for young girls and young women to learn, that menstruation is normal and meaningful. And it's still such an important theme. There are still significant equity gaps in menstrual health. It was one of the reasons that we introduced free period products into schools and TAFEs in the last term of government. The book covers themes that remain universal to the young woman's experience today about growing up and puberty, menstruation and body changes, friendship and peer pressure, self-confidence and identity, and the transition from childhood to adolescence. And yet somehow these themes in the book itself remain controversial to some. What Bloom did was to treat these experiences with honesty and humour. She helped generations of girls, including me, to understand that their questions, anxieties and excitement about growing up were completely normal. Again, it provided us a safe pathway. The novel has frequently appeared on lists of the most challenged books in American schools and libraries. And ironically, many educators and librarians have argued that the very reasons it was challenged were what made it valuable. It provided age-appropriate information and helped young people to feel less isolated during puberty. It made Judy Bloom herself a prominent advocate for intellectual freedom and the right of young people to access books that reflect their experiences. She often spoke about how attempts to censor books deprived readers of stories that can help them understand themselves and the world around them. And one of her central arguments was that adults often challenged books because they made adults uncomfortable, not because they harmed children. She believed, as I do, that young readers were capable of engaging thoughtfully with difficult or sensitive topics, and that books could provide reassurance, information and companionship during confusing stages of life. She said it's not the books that need protection, it's the kids. And by this she meant that young people need access to a wide range of ideas and experiences so they can learn, question and develop their own understanding of the world. She also argued that no parent should be forced to have their child read a particular book, but that one parent's objection should not determine what every other child is allowed to read. In her view, and I share it, families could make individual choices while libraries and schools should preserve access for everyone. So that book was important to me as an adolescent. When I became a sole parent overnight, books became important to me in another way, because we no longer looked like other families. I was the second single mum at my kids' primary school when their dad passed away. And so finding us represented in fiction became a really, really important way for me and my kids to understand that our family was represented, that our family was okay, that our family could be as loving as any other type of family. I also used fiction to help them understand really complex experiences that they were living. It helped me as their mum to help them navigate not just grief, but the enduring connection of love and identity that they would have to their dad. And I thank the many authors who provide parents such as me with age-appropriate, developmentally appropriate ways for me to explore as a parent with my children those very complex experiences. We have also seen in Western Australia a couple of trials in the Cockburn Library and City of Perth libraries, social work students actually, being on placement in public libraries. And they're on placement in public libraries just because public libraries are indeed those trusted spaces, they're accessible, and people go to public libraries to access education, to help them navigate complexities. And with social work students there on placements, there's a real-life human being to help meet them around some of that. And I applaud the Cockburn and the City of Perth libraries who have, in partnership with the School of Social Work at Curtin University, embarked on that particular experience. So, as a social worker, as a parent, I simply cannot support a motion that limits not just access to information and education, but limits access to pathways to empathy, to compassion and to kindness.